go to LA Rams, 5-12. Vegas has them at 6.5. I think they can do better this year as long as they stay healthy. They shouldn't have been 5-12 last year. That being said, they weren't great even with Kupp and Stafford at the beginning of the year. They also didn't have Akers going bananas like he did at the end of the season. So they were bottom 6 in yards per game passing and bottom 6 in yards per game rushing. So not great for a team. That being said,
we talked about this team being a team that is going to improve just based off they had so many injuries last year to key positions. So, yeah, the numbers are going to look bad. Like if we're looking at numbers from last year, they're going to look bad.
Well, no, I've got some good stats that show the promising ability of these players on this team. And with Matt Stafford, he's QB 21. He's 145 overall. So you get him for a steal for a guy that's going to be, I mean, you could argue it, but people are arguing Eli Manning not being Hall of Famer. People are going to argue he should be a Hall of Famer, but Stafford's been a great quarterback in the NFL. He did have a 68% completion percentage. He averaged, I want to say, I can't remember how many games he played before he got hurt, but he was averaging 34 attempts a game and about 232 yards per game. So he was very similar to Geno Smith in that time span while he was playing. Like Geno Smith's numbers, pretty much this on par. And let's not forget he was QB5 in 2021. So to me, Stafford's a guy that I'm not jumping out to grab. He's coming to me if I fade quarterback. That's the way I look at it. He's not one that I'm going to be afraid of getting because, again, this team is probably going to be playing from behind and have some garbage time. And who better than Matt Stafford, who used to do it in Detroit during garbage time as well. So I like Matt Stafford, especially with a healthy Cooper Kupp. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, he's wide receiver 3, 5 overall. Some could argue that he should be wide receiver 1 or 2. And I'm not, anybody can make any argument with his top 3, top 4. In the first 8 games, he had 500-yard games with 6 touchdowns. He averaged 9 targets a game in 8 of those. And in 8 games, he only played 8 total games healthy before he got hurt. He was still wide receiver 23 overall. So
number 1 below double digits.
Yeah. So that being said, there's no arguing Cooper Kupp. I mean, like I said, you can argue if you want to take him as your first receiver off the board. If you are in a PPR league and you want to argue Kupp over Jefferson or Kupp over Chase, or both those guys, you can make your argument that this guy is going to be the only target there. He's going to get the volume, and he has. I'm not saying he's going to go for almost 2,000 yards again, but I'm going to tell you he's going to see the lion's share, and he's not going to be as much target share as those other guys are going to get. Let's move on to the guys that have a little bit more question marks on them.
Well, this is absolutely going to kill me because I'm gonna do it again for the second straight year. Is you have to really like the guy that's opposite Cooper Kupp. And last year that was Allen Robinson, and that didn't really work out well for me.
Yeah, but you were high on Van Jefferson last year. Not as much Allen Robinson. You were high on.
Before they signed Allen Robinson, I loved Van Jefferson.
And you didn't hate Van Jefferson either. I remember you still high on Van Jefferson, but you weren't going to take him after Robinson got signed.
No. So I like Van Jefferson this year. I think that Puka is a sleeper option in that offense. That he left today with some cramping and got carted off the field at practice, but I don't think it's going to be anything.
It's the hottest month in history of the recording. So
yeah, and people want to go to Death Valley just to experience 130 degrees. Stay inside, people. Yeah. Stay inside.
Dude, when taillights are melting in Arizona, I am not stepping outside there.
Hey, I've personally seen in Phoenix people cook breakfast in their windshield. Like just put it out in the car and just let it cook in the sun. I've seen it. But yeah, I mean, I like Puka as a deep sleeper. I know there's been a lot of talk about Tutu Atwell, and I just don't see him getting heavily volumed. It's there's other guys like that in other offenses that I like. Like a good comparison is like Rashid Shaheed in New Orleans, and I like Rashid Shaheed a heck of a lot more than I like Tutu Atwell.
Well, who's your big sleeper pick of the year that you kept talking about all offseason too?
Trent Sherfield.
Same situation. Sherfield. I mean, The other receiver too that you left out of that list was Ben Skoranek. He's another one who had like a couple of highlights in the game. But again, all that stuff came last year without Cooper Kupp.
Right.
I mean, Cooper Kupp is this offense through the air.
And we've actually seen Van Jefferson be productive with Cooper Kupp on the other side, which is why last year I really liked Van Jefferson coming into the season before they signed Allen Robinson, is because we've seen in 2021 Van Jefferson be productive opposite Cooper Kupp, and I think that can happen again this year. I still think Cooper Kupp is going to be. I mean, I have him. We've done our wide receiver rankings. I can easily make the argument for him being the number 2 overall, or the number 2 wide receiver, not overall.
Yeah.
And
well, if you're going PPR, then yeah, you could argue 2 overall. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's an absolute freak when it comes to catching the ball. He's the best route runner at the top of the route in the league. This guy is always open, and Stafford knows that. And his rapport with Stafford is fantastic. Stafford is going to come back healthy, and Stafford is Stafford. You know, he's a gunslinger. He's Brett Favrean without showing his.
Well, he has been his entire career. We know what Matt Stafford is. At the end of the day.
God damn it! I said they showed his man junk, and now we're going to get sued like Pat McAfee. Defamation, baby. Defamation.
Oh, Brett Favre. You got bigger things to worry about, bud.
Thanks for the 1 year with the New York Jets, bud.
So, all right, let's get off the receivers because we said we love Cooper Kupp. I think Van Jefferson is a good wide receiver too to go with. Let me pull up where Van Jefferson is actually going because that may give us a little bit of insight.
13th round.
Yeah, he's down there. He's past Tony, Quentin Johnson. Man, he's down there. There he is, 72, wide receiver 72, 186. So, I mean, he's down there.
Baby.
He's literally being drafted for free.
Get him free, baby.
So he's one that you could go on because he's going to get the number 2 looks. This is a team, again, that we talked about playing from behind. And here's the thing I will say before we talk about Cam Akers and Tyler Higbee is if Stafford isn't healthy or something happens to Stafford or issues are going on, they have Georgia here, this side of me. They have the Georgia boy, Stetson Bennett there now listed as
depth chart. The guy's like 30 years old.
He's true. He is. He's our age. No. But Stetson Bennett's there, and I think he's a more capable quarterback than they had who they threw out there last year. So to me, I think
you think he's better than Baker Mayfield? I mean, you can make that argument. I can make that
argument. I could. So I'm not going to hype Stetson Bennett up anymore. I'm just going to, go Dogs.
Teddy Two Gloves would be a great backup in this offense.
Well, you don't. Yeah, I guess. So Cam Akers last year finished at running back 23, and that was, or he's going running back 23 right now, 59 overall. I don't have to see where he finished last year. He didn't finish high because he only had 786 yards and 7 touchdowns, but he had a 4.2 yards per carry. He came in hot at the end of the season when they needed him. When they started had that little bit of spark with Baker and everything. He came in hot. They added no real competition, really. They added late round draft pick, I think, and they have old draft picks. Yeah, Sony Michel, who was there in the past, who again, like he had a little bit of a piece before, but I think it just shows that they want to have insurance there because Darrell Henderson's no longer there. McVay
just so reminiscent of like a couple of years ago when like everyone drafted Darrell Henderson to be the guy, and then Sony Michel and Cam Akers were splitting in, and McVay just doesn't care. Like he's like Belichick.
It's injuries. If one of these guys gets injured, the next man up is going to get it. So it is like Belichick with that aspect. But literally, McVay came out and already said that in the offseason that he's going to be a huge part of this offense.
Yeah.
He singled out Akers, and Akers, I think, earned it.
Yeah, I think Sony Michel is a better option than Kyren Williams. So having a solid backup there, I think Cam Akers is going to be the guy. And again, we've talked about him and Connor as being our best 0 running back candidates to go and grab in those middle rounds. And I still feel that way. I still think Cam Akers is going to be solid. He's going to be on an improved offense where he doesn't have to carry the workload. But when he does, it might have taken him all season. I think he went through some things last year, maybe personally, that he was going through in the middle of the season. Then when he finally committed to the team, and we saw the kind of production that he had over the final 5 weeks of the season. And if he gives that kind of effort, if he is anything like that, then he can end up being a top 10 running back. But I'm not going to draft him as that because we just don't know. There's so much inconsistency. And again, I kind of talked about it early in the season or early in this episode where like, I'm not going to project out a 5-game span and be like, oh, well, during this 5-game span, if he got this kind of volume, the same kind of argument everyone's doing with Chig. It's like if he did this and he got these amount of
Chig's a smaller sample size.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, you look at Cam Akers' season last year, and the sample size is there for when he got the volume of touches. Again, he was playing. You know, we thought this offense was going to be terrible. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback, and you're like, all right, well, what is the running back going to do there? And he ended up performing really well and kept them in games and actually helped win some games for them.
Yeah, he had RB4 finish and RB1 finish, 2 RB13 finishes. But I mean, like even in his even the past seasons, he still like wasn't. I mean, he was injured the year 2021. He was pretty much off the team. But don't forget, like he did the same thing when he came in his rookie year. Remember, he came back and they brought him in the wild card and divisional round, and he went bananas those 2 rounds again.
Yeah,
you know, at the end of the season. So like it's not. I think it's just one of those things that I think McVay had him in a doghouse a little bit more, and he was going through some stuff for sure. I think you're going to see a refreshed Cam Akers here.
I do too.
Let's talk about Tyler Higbee before we move on to our last team, the Niners. Tyler Higbee finished as tight end 15, believe it or not. He literally was heavily targeted while Kupp was there as well, not just while he wasn't, which is a big thing. He had I think I looked at it, 72 receptions after Kupp with 3 TDs. I mean, he just was a machine. I think I think he was higher in PPR, if I remember too.
Can we just pause and can I say this really quickly? And this is going to go for pretty much every tight end. I'm going to make a stock video and then just copy and paste that every time we talk about a tight end. That's not TJ Hawkinson. That's not George Kittle. That's not Mark Andrews. And that's not Travis Kelce.
But he was one of the few guys that got 100 targets, you know, that on the back end of that whole thing and 72 receptions. So I mean, yeah, I agree with you. They all jumble together. They all make one little.
I'm still going to draft a second guy. He's not consistent enough to be a starter every week. Is he a guy that can finish as a top 10 or a top 15? Yeah, he is. But there are literally a plethora of guys. Every guy not named those 4 that I just named, like, is in that category.
Yeah,
and
I
so
agree with you.
The same argument, like, yeah, you can go and make an argument for Tyler Higbee. You can go and make an argument for for Dalton Schultz. You can go and make an argument for Gerald Everett, and you can make an argument for David Njoku. They're all the same guy. They're all the guys that are going to be they're involved enough in the offense to have value, but they're not involved enough in the offense to be a consistent every week starter. So he's going to be a matchup play. He's going to have weeks where he's going to dud and do nothing. And I think, especially on an offense where Cooper Kupp is going to have, 15 to 20 targets a game, like it's hard for me to love. There are going to be weeks where Tyler Higbee is going to be like, Tyler Higbee is back. He's going to be the guy every
10
week.
10 targets, 8 catches.
Yeah, and then you're going to start him,
yards.
and he's going to have one point. And that's the reality of the tight end position.
But it's any of them after those top 4, because Evan Ingram did that. Like they all done that. So I'm just making the point here for everybody. Like, don't overlook Higbee in this offense, because he was a pivotal role for them last year when they needed him, and I think he's going to still hold the role this year. Again, he's still a tight end in a volatile market. So let's move on to our last team.